Hi everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to the Creation Ship. In this video, I'm going to ask you to look at things differently. Look at your supplies, turn them upside down, and see what they can do for you. I'm working on my 7x10 Canson Mixed Media art journal page. And here's something. I'm looking at this gel print, and I am using it as a base. It isn't a finished product. I am going to use it as a base, take inspiration from it to jumpstart my creativity. Right off the bat, I'm going to use it, the patterns that are there, the colors that are there. We're in that teal zone, and right across the color wheel, we see the oranges and reds and fuchsias. I'm going to use that information. You'll see now. So I'm going to take some paint. For my focal image, I want some bright colors that are going to pop off that background. So that's where I went across the color wheel. So I'm adding this bright yellow. I believe this is Artist Loft brand. And I'm adding some magenta to it, some quinacridone magenta. I don't want just one color. That's boring. So I want to add a little bit, but I don't want pattern because of where I'm going to go with this. Now here's that quinacridone magenta straight up. You can see it's across the color wheel from the greens and blues and teals. So I know it's going to pop off that background. And I'm adding a little bit of blue. And I'm just kind of dry brushing it on because, again, I want some more interest in there. I don't want just that flat one color. You could add a little bit of gray, you could add a little bit of white, or colors that you know play well with each other. Now, for the third color, I'm actually mixing the bright yellow with the quinacridone magenta, and you get this rich, burnt orange kind of color. And I know it's all three of these are going to work together because, well, that third one is those first two colors together. Once that's dry, I'm going to do some stamping. Now, I am stamping with this ladybug stamp. But there is no ladybug on my page. That's because in a previous art journal page, and I will link that page, when I cut off the legs, this is kind of an oval shape. And as it was sitting on my desk, I noticed that if I rearranged them, I could turn or use the ladybug body and patterning that comes with the stamp as flower petals. So that's what I'm doing. I'm stamping it out on this colored paper. I think those bugs look really cute. But I know I'm going to cut off the legs, so I'm overlapping. I realized that after I stamped on the yellow ones, that I could overlap the legs because I'm going to cut them off. I don't want those legs. And then once it's dry, I'm cutting off the legs and getting what I am going to turn into flower petals. So look at your stamps. Look at the shapes, look at the patterns. How can you use it? How can you use them not in the way they were intended? So there I have them all cut up. I even have some white ones. Now I want to add a little more interest to that background. Remember I said I'm not looking at it as a finished background. I'm looking at it as the first couple layers. Now the ladybugs, they're round shapes. And I know I'm going to make flowers out of them, so that's why I chose this Retro Burst stencil. It's from Crafter's Workshop. It is an oldie, but a goodie, and I keep coming back to it because it just seems to work. It's got kind of those triangular shapes in it, but in a circle. I've just gotten lots of use from it. So if you're looking for a workhorse to add to your stash, that one might be the one. There's a link to the Crafter's Workshop below, and you can also get a lot of TCW stencils at Ninny's Napkins. There's also a link to that. So now I'm just edging that page with the Prussian blue that I stamped on. I stayed in that same color zone. If you go back and look at the color wheel, blues and teals and the green are all together. That means they're going to play nice together. I wanted to add some circles because we have the dots on the ladybugs. And I wanted to introduce kind of that pinkish orange color to the background. So 2 birds, 1 stone. I'm using the stencil and the color to get the shape and the color into that background. This is another one from the Crafters Workshop. It's from their cake and cookie stencils, which they're food safe if you use them in there. But once you use them in the art studio, you really shouldn't go back. You don't want any acrylic paint or anything. So there we have the almost finished background. So now I spent a lot of time playing with these ladybugs, flower petals. And I'm arranging them in different ways and, you know, using 6 petals, 6 ladybugs, 4 ladybugs, 5 ladybugs, 3. It's quite amazing how many shapes I can create, how many flowers. And I love them. Now you can see that retroverse stencil in the background. It's kind of mirroring that flower shape that I'm creating. I spend a lot of time rearranging things on my figuring out the composition. So don't feel bad if that's you too. I spend a lot of time, and some of it isn't even on video. So I like to show my thought process on here to let you know that's normal. You can spend time rearranging, playing with it, trying out one or the other, additioning it, I call it. So now I'm quite happy with what I have. So I am going to glue them down. And I'm using my fluid matte medium. It's a Liquitex brand. I haven't tried a whole lot of brands. I found this one. I like this one. I keep going back to what I know and what I like using. So I'm giving it a coat of the fluid matte medium underneath. Now here you'll notice that I've overlapped the flowers, just like in nature. And I'm toying with the idea of using one of the colors of the ladybugs, the petals, as the center of the flowers. But I haven't glued it down yet because I'm not 100% that that's what I want to do. So since I'm not 100%, I thought, what did they look like if I just painted the centers black? And I tried it. I really didn't. I like it better with the ladybug, the colored ladybug ones. So now I can't have these flowers just floating, so I'm just painting in a stem, and I'm getting green, adding a little bit of black. Alternatively, you could cut a gel print and use a gel print and make the stems if you would want it. So I'm adding that in, adding some leaves, mixing the colors as I go, changing it up, adding a little bit of gesso, white gesso, so that it becomes a little more opaque and I don't see the background. I think the leaves would have been nice with a gel print. So I challenge you, go and look at your stamps. Is there a stamp or stamps that you can do something else with the shape, with the pattern? And if you find one, let me know. Share so we can all maximize the use of the products that we've bought. So I've decided I'm going to use the ladybug bodies in alternate colors as the center of my flowers. So I'm just gluing those down. And since I have black on the ladybugs, and I know I'm going to have some black on the sentiment, I am just edging it with black using my angle brush and the floating acrylic shading technique that you've seen me use a number of times. I do have a video that teaches that. It's a great technique to get a handle on because you'll use it on every single page. And I'm shading the flower petals. I'm shading on the petals, and then later you're going to see me shade on the background around the petals and the stem and the leaf. I typically do both. Who knew you could take a ladybug body and turn it into a flower? The magic of mixed media. That would be a good title for a video. Now this page, I almost thought about not putting a sentiment on it. Oh, but before we do, I thought that the background got a little dark. So I'm using white acrylic paint, and I picked that same retroverse stencil, and I'm just adding that around the petals. Now, of course, this would be easier if I had done this before I glued everything down. But, you know, I can get it pretty close and wipe off the excess. Sometimes you don't know you need something until it's a little harder to put it down. But I like having that retroverse stencil in the dark Prussian blue and then on the white. It just adds another interesting layer. I think this flower with the ladybugs, I think I might do this again. I might make a series of greeting cards. It's so easy, and you can use bright colors, you can mix and match. Use up those gel prints. That's why I like doing art journals, because it gives you ideas that you can use in more usable art. Canvases that you hang on walls, home decor, and greeting cards. I think the size would work. Maybe only one flower would fit, because this is 7 by 10, a 4 by 6, a 5 by 7 card. Now I bubble cut around this sentiment. It was in my stash, in my discard pile that collects all the little bits that I don't use at other times. So I just left a little white around it. That's what I call bubble cutting. And I'm just gluing that down. I wasn't really happy with that leaf, so that's the reason I decided to put something over top of it, because I really didn't want to see that leaf. And now it just makes it all work a little bit better, I think. So sometimes you put something to hide it. Now here I decided to experiment. I have this golden glass bead shell. I spent enough money on it. It's been sitting in my stash. It's still perfectly good. So yay, good product. And I'm putting it on with a palette knife. Now I put it on pretty thick. And in the end, the pictures, it still didn't dry multiple hours afterwards because it was so thick. So 2-3 hours later, it's still a little cloudy. It did eventually dry clear. I would skip that. It didn't give me the effect I thought it was. I might put some gloss medium on it to get that shine. I would skip that step. If you're following this tutorial, I'd skip that. You don't need it. So here are the close-ups of the finished product. The light, it was a cloudy day and I couldn't get it, but I had to get the video done. Go look at your stamps. See what you can change, use in a different way. I challenge you. Go get creative.